We're joined now to talk about this horrific day. What can we learn from what we know so far, and can these schools really be safer in the face of these threats of mass shootings? Former LAPD detective Mark Fuhrman is with us, along with Randy Sutton, a former Las Vegas police officer. Gentlemen, it's good to see you on another awful night. Mark, let's start with you. You've been taking this all in today. What are your thoughts?
Well, Laura, when you look at this since Columbine, it seems that public schools have grappled with security in a lot of ways, and they've come up with a lot of scenarios for lockdown procedures and dealing with the police that are about to approach in an active shooter situation. But we have to look at the things that are coming up. Once again, gun control comes up. Once again, mental illness. We're not going to stop mental illness. We're not going to get rid of the Second Amendment, but we can harden a target. We can lock down schools. We can have some type of electronic admission. We can have metal detectors. We can make the kids safe so the shooter just can't walk into the school anytime he pleases. And that's what happens every single time in one of these shootings.
Randy, I was at my kids' school today, and it's so weird because I was buzzed in. And every time I'm buzzed into a school to visit a friend or my own kids, I always think about these things. And I went through my mind today. It's easy to get into most schools, right? If you could kill a someone could kill a security guard, they force someone to buzz you, and then you're in. I mean, what can you really do? You can't, as our previous guest said in Hannity's show, you can't turn a school into a prison. And so then people get locked into classrooms. And is that a good idea, given the fact that then you're a target in a classroom? I mean, I'm not an expert on this. You are, Randy.
No, you said it very well that we can't make these schools into a prison. However, we can target harden. And there's a very wise man that once said, if it's predictable, it's preventable. And unfortunately, we have now found that school shootings are predictable. So we have to discover the ways that we can target harden these schools and at least give these children and these teachers and staff members a chance. Now, there's clearly a correlation here that we have seen tonight, that there was, because of training, many lives that were saved. So that's a positive. But we have to look at a way to prevent what is predictable.
Mark, let's go back to you on this. We found out that he was denied entrance to the school campus not so long ago when he was carrying a backpack. He had reportedly made threats, some in jest, some others perhaps not, against other students. By all accounts, he was socially ostracized. His mother died last year. He was an adopted young man. His family in the area, obviously, but his mother died. He followed the Iraqi resistance online and Iraq fighters, Syrian resistance and Iraq fighters, according to Trace Gallagher. We're learning more about his profile and obviously the photos on social media of him with various knives, various guns, asking about long gun background checks for particular ammunition. So he was getting ready for something.
Well, these are clues, and there's 1,000 people that can name right now that are watching this show of yours right now that say he fits that profile. So if we can profile and we can actually target these people and actually notify somebody, is there really an agency that's going to do anything? On Sean Hannity's show, he brought up retired cops and retired military being on campus. I understand what he's saying, but I disagree. I think you need to make school security a specialty. You need to make it a specialty just like terrorism. You need to have young officers that are motivated and in the beginning of their career that are sharp and actually are really dedicated to the long range of being in this type of profession in school security, because our youth are some of the most important people in the country, and yet it seems that we secure them the least.
And Randy, back to you. Given the fact that they knew he was very troubled, and there are a lot of kids who are troubled. A lot of kids have broken homes. They come from broken homes. They seem like they have a predilection to violence or anger, repressed anger, ostracized, alone. He had very few friends, apparently, at the school. We haven't found one friend or someone who even considered himself a real acquaintance of him. So those do kind of tick off a lot. And Mark, you've been on this for a lot of these school shooters. So given that they knew all this about him, I'm not saying they should have known he was going to shoot, but is there any interventions that you can do either at the home with him that could have prevented this? I mean, he was expelled from the school for obvious reasons.
There's going to once the autopsy of this individual is done. When I say autopsy, I'm talking about a psychological autopsy is done. They're going to discover that there were a number of key factors that would have warned that set red flags up all over the place. But these things are nothing happens in a vacuum. There are people that already have spoken that knew that this guy had predilections for violence and that he was off his, he was making these comments. He was showing basically, I think, his cards in advance. But I want to talk about something that Mark just spoke about. And Israel in the 70s dealt with the schools being targeted by terrorists, and they lived through, unfortunately, the murders of a number of school children, and they have stopped it. And you know what, Laura, we can too.
Mark, finally on this, the AR-15 looks like was his weapon of choice. That was involved in the San Bernardino shooting, Sandy Hook, the Pulse nightclub. And so you already see the push about re-examining the AR-15. Tell us a little bit about that weapon. 40% of Floridians have firearms. AR-15, one of the most popular firearms in the United States. But that clearly is being targeted by the anti-gun folks tonight.
Well, Laura, it's considered, it's called the M4 platform, and it's based on the AR-15. And yes, there's a lot of them. And most of them are used legally. If a suspect chooses that weapon and you take that weapon away, they've been making weapons since about 1908 that are automatic fired weapons that can deliver just as much firepower and almost as fast as an AR-15. In the hands of a competent person, you don't even need that. You need something that is almost an antique weapon to do the same amount of damage. So it's in the hands of a skilled person. An AR-15 makes up for that a little bit, but it is not the reason that this occurred. The reason that this occurred is not only a mental illness, it's security, it's not having a hardened target, and actually not anybody paying attention to all the flags.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, on a very difficult night for just terrific analysis of this horrific situation.